Hello everybody, Maven here, and welcome to my self-proclaimed world's first Prismatic Subclass build video. Yes, the final shape's not out for a couple months, but I don't care. I had an awesome build in mind and I wanted to share it with you guys. So today's build is going to be for Warlock, but if you like this kind of thing, let me know in the comments and maybe I can do another one for Hunter and Titan. So let's get to it. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so to address the elephant in the room, the build in the background gameplay is not the build in question because obviously the build we're talking about isn't out yet. But this is the current closest build to that. This is the good old double turrets Getaway Artist one-man army build, or in this case the one-woman army build. And the reason this one-man army build is going to be so good in the final shape is because we are getting a brand new Warlock ability called Hellion. And Bungie revealed a while back what the Hellion ability is. It's activated the same way as Arc Soul is. You place down a rift, you get that Solar Soul. And it seems to have some pretty good tracking and some pretty good height to it. There was a clip where they shot it like over a Titan barricade in PvP, and it seems to be a little more explosive than Arc Soul and may or may not have better tracking. And the very annoying thing about it, especially for Crucible, is that it applies a hefty chunk of scorch damage as well. And the reason this build is going to be so good in the final shape is because, let's take a look here at the abilities that Bungie spoiled in the article they released a few days ago. Here are the Warlock abilities, and as you can see, we can have an arc grenade along with the Hellion aspect, so we can consume our arc grenade to our Getaway Artist to get a sentient Arc Soul and also have a Hellion turret at the same time. And as you can see in the background gameplay, we are also using the No Time to Explain pulse rifle, which can give us another turret. If we land 10 crits, we can get that Time Chasm turret. So technically in the final shape, we can have 3 turrets at the same time. And now while that idea of having 3 turrets is appealing to most people, I would not recommend actually doing that. The No Time to Explain is fine, but it's not a crazy good weapon. Pulse rifles are one of the weakest archetypes in PvE. So I would recommend just sticking with the Getaway Artist and the Hellion. That's going to be pretty consistent to have it pretty much at all times with this build. And those 2 turrets should be more than enough. So what weapon are we actually going to use with the build then, if not No Time to Explain? Well, what I'm going to be trying out is Aegir's Scepter. I think Aegir's Scepter is going to have great synergy with this build. And that brings us to our first fragment here, Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with dark damage grants grenade energy. For those who are newer to the game, dark is Stasis and Strand, light is Arc, Solar, and Void. Now, it's weird because this fragment is like the polar opposite of the Indomitability origin trait that's on a bunch of weapons right now, because the Indomitability actually grants you grenade energy on light final blows and melee energy on dark final blows, but Facet of Balance seems to be the other way around. Now, because of the fact that we want a lot of grenade energy so we can spam sentient Arc Souls with the Getaway Artist, what are we going to do? Well, we need to get rapid dark final blows for Facet of Balance. Now, the Solar Soul and the Arc Soul are both light sources, so when they get final blows, it's actually going to be feeding us melee energy. But the reason the Aegir Scepter may be very good with this build is because you know how you freeze and kill one target and suddenly everything around that target freezes? Well, even if our Solar Soul and our Arc Soul get the kills, or we just get the kills with our weapon itself, all the shattering, the freezing and shattering that's going to be going on counts as a dark source. So we can have those souls going and it's not really going to interrupt our darkness final blows, thus feeding us all this grenade energy with the Facet of Balance. Not only that, but we are also going to get a ton of grenade energy from Devour, because our other aspect is going to be Feed the Void. And unlike before, you do not need a Void ability final blow to proc Feed the Void. It works now with any ability final blow. So with our soul effects, that is going to be incredibly easy. So not only will final blows heal us, but when you have Devour, final blows also grant grenade energy. So between that and the Facet of Balance, we're going to get so much grenade energy that we may be able to actually just throw a storm grenade and still be able to get another nade charge back on time to proc that Arc Soul again when we need it. So enough about grenade energy. How are we actually going to spam Hellion? We need class ability energy. Well, that brings us to our next fragment here, which is going to be Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. And on this build, that is basically going to be active at all times because we're going to have Devour pretty much at all times. So we'll just have that constant class ability regeneration. But also if we happen to not have Devour for whatever crazy reason, remember that eating your grenade with the Getaway Artist not only gives you the Arc Soul, but also makes you amplified. So it turns it sentient. Amplified is an elemental buff, so it'll proc Facet of Hope and give you bonus class ability regen. Now, just one more thing about Hellion before moving on. What we know about it right now is that using your class ability will proc this ability and give you the Solar Soul, but we don't really know the fine print of it until the final shape comes out. So we don't know if it says using your class ability or placing a rift. Now, why does that matter? Because that would mean that we can use Phoenix Dive to proc Hellion. And if that's the case, then it'd probably be better to use Phoenix Dive over a rift because it charges quicker. So moving on to our next fragment, which is Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits make you radiant. So it's the same thing as Ember of Ashes. And because of that, we are using Arcane Needle as our melee ability, not only because it has 3 charges, so it's easier to spam, but also because it's a darkness source, so it contributes to Facet of Balance to give us grenade energy. Now, as for the final fragment, I'm torn between 3 options. I don't know which one to go with until we actually get the chance to try them out. The first of which is going to be Facet of Justice. While transcendent, your ability final blows explode. Not only do we not know how good those explosions will be, but we don't know how easy it is to become transcendent. In the gameplay reveal that they showed us a week ago, we got to see a little clip of this super meter, this like mini super meter underneath the normal super meter. I believe that that is the transcendent meter, and when that is full, it basically means we become transcendent. Now that's just a hunch. I don't know if that's actually the case. And the next fragment option is going to be Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants a plethora of abilities based on your equipped super. We don't know how good Frost Armor is going to be yet, but probably not the way to go because Winter's Wrath is probably one of the worst supers in the game. And Woven Mail is always a fine option, and Needle Storm is a good super. Personally though, I'd probably go with Nova Bomb so I can get an Overshield on an Orb pickup. That's going to be pretty good for survivability. Now, because of Devour, I don't believe we really need Restoration too badly, but you can never really go wrong with Restoration. You got to have the new Song of Flame super equipped, and I'll show that on screen for those who don't know what it is. It's kind of like Sun Singer from Destiny 1. You become radiant and you throw out like infinite supercharged celestial fires and nades. It looks pretty good, but I would still probably stick with Nova Bomb and the Overshields. And then the final fragment option is Facet of Ruin. Increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. So obviously that's going to synergize with our Aegir Scepter, if Aegir Scepter does end up being a good weapon for this build. Now that is basically it for the subclass and abilities. As for the weapons, besides Aegir Scepter, you can go with pretty much any energy primary that you want. It depends on what kind of content you're doing. If you need to stun a champion, you can just run a weapon accordingly. And in your heavy slot, I would recommend a stasis heavy because, you know, Aegir Scepter stasis, we can take advantage of stasis-based mods. And because Aegir Scepter is an ad clear weapon, I would recommend going with a DPS heavy. So if you want a rocket launcher, there's like the Palmyra or Bump in the Night. If you want a heavy GL, there is the Typhon, which I would probably go with. And then there is the Slammer with Relentless Strikes and Bait and Switch if you want a sword. If you want a linear fusion rifle, there's the Fire and Forget or the Reed's Regret. So you have options. And here's what the mod setup's gonna look like. And I don't really have to delve too deep into this since the build's not even out yet, but basically it's just like an infinite special ammo setup with special ammo finisher and some ammo efficiency stuff, and then creating some orbs of power and then spamming abilities, and that is pretty much the gist of it. And then for the stats, of course, I always prioritize a minimum of 10 resilience, a minimum of 3 intellect, and a minimum of 2 strength, and try to reach 100 discipline if you can, and dump the rest into recovery. So there you have it for the build. It is going to be absolutely nasty. When the final shape drops, I'm definitely going to be covering this build, so keep an eye out for that. And the Sentient Arc Souls, as they are incredibly underrated. They hit like a truck, and I can't imagine having that plus the Solar Soul plus Infinite Devour. Dude, it is going to slap. And without even trying the build, I can tell you it's about to be wild. And this is going to be an amazing beginner-friendly build as well because the ease of use is just unmatched. The build basically plays the game for you. So anyways, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like and a comment because it really helps out about the algorithm. Let me know what build you're looking forward to in the final shape, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, as I am on my way to that big 50K by the end of the year, and you can help me get there, and thank you so much if you do. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. See you later.